I got married, we've sold everything we own, jumped on a plane, and moved countries twice.
Yeah, and it's amazing what you can fit inside a suitcase.
Here are 10 life lessons from selling everything and moving abroad.
I've started recording, by the way.
Oh,
Is that light fine?
yes.
Okay.
Finn and I got married 11 years ago. I moved from Denmark to Iceland to be with him. Then a few years later, we moved with our son to Texas to be there for a few years for grad school. Then a few years after that, we moved with Marcos and Emilia back to Denmark where we now are living. So we moved across the Atlantic with kids twice.
And in both cases, we pretty much sold everything that we had, jumped on a plane, and just moved. So we're gonna share with you the life lessons that we learned from that. Now, we are all about helping reduce the chaos of family life, and that might not seem like it's very consistent with, selling everything you have and moving to a different country, but in this case, I think there are a lot of lessons that we've learned from this process that help us to do just that. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, then please hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon for notifications.
The first of our 10 life lessons from selling everything and moving abroad is that life is too short to put on hold while raising kids. And that really goes for anything with like moving or going on vacation or just going on adventures or bring your kids along for stuff.
Yeah, experiencing things. So many times while we've been either contemplating going on vacation or in this case, like getting ready to move abroad, the stuff that you'd read online would be like, wait until the kids are a little bit older because they won't remember it. They won't have, the same experiences looking back. But I disagree with that. I think when you are experiencing things, everybody's having fun. And they'll look back on the stories that you tell them and the pictures that they see from those experiences, and they'll have a sense of like adventure just from that.
And if you keep going on adventures and vacations with them, they'll remember a lot more than you think they will.
And you might reasonably question how your kids are going to react if you're taking them all over the place and exposing them to experiences that other kids don't have. Is it going to be too much for them? But in our experience, kids adapt.
And they'll always have you as their constant. And even if you're taking them halfway across the world, they'll still have you there with them, and you can make sure that they have the routines that they're used to.
Yeah, so to wrap things up, kids are awesome, and life is too short to put on hold while you're raising those kids. The second life lesson we learned from selling everything and moving abroad is that stuff is not as important as you think, or as we thought at the time we first moved. Stuff basically comes and goes.
Before Finn and I got married, I went on a shopping trip with one of my friends and got this huge white furry hat. It was amazing. It was really pretty and I loved it. But we were moving to Texas and I was like, it doesn't make sense to bring this. In the end, I think at the second garage sale, I finally sold it and I was like, it's okay, I'll be fine.
Sorry, so if you can hear some knocking in the background, it's because our neighbor just moved into the terrace house right next to ours and they're renovating the whole thing. But we're not gonna let that stop us from shooting a video.
Yeah, I finally sold my hat. I was a little bit sad about it. We moved to Texas. I didn't really need it while we lived there. There were probably like 2 days where I could have used it in the 3 years we lived there. But still, moving back home here to Denmark again, it wasn't until just last week that I was like, I had a big white furry hat once. The life lesson here is that even though you love something a lot, you use it all the time, it comes and it goes, and you won't think of it 10 years down the road and be sad still. And just as an added point, on the top of furniture, it is a lot easier to furnish an apartment if you're just going for the bare necessities than you might think. Like there are Craigslist, there are like a lot of free cycle pages on Facebook. We found this in all 3 countries that we lived in.
And that's been our approach, to get the stuff that we need for free or for cheap and then gradually replace items until we have the home that we want. And it always works. Christine, it always works.
It always works at the end.
It always works with time. Yeah, we've had some ugly couches.
What's something you've gotten rid of that was difficult for you to get rid of? Do you miss it? Do you not? Let us know in the comments below. The third life lesson is to learn to rely on each other. And this is a really big one for me because he used to just be so codependent on his mom.
Where is this coming from? This is turning out to be very therapeutic for the two of us. And we don't even have to pay for a marriage counselor, so...
We've got you!
Thank you. Jokes aside, we did move away from family. Being in the heart of Texas means that we are very far away from any natural Vikings. That's not entirely true. But we were away from basically your parents, my parents, and all of our immediate family.
Exactly. Even though it's so nice to be close to your parents and your siblings for that support, it's even nicer in the beginning of a marriage to be away from everyone and having to rely on each other. So when a difficult situation arises, you have no choice but to turn to each other only.
So which one of these creams do you use for a diaper rash?
Binny, you've been married 11 years. Call your wife.
Life lesson number 4 from selling everything and moving abroad is that money doesn't equal happiness.
Yeah, we were basically broke when we moved to Texas. The income that we had was below poverty line. I stayed at home. He was a student research assistant. Is that what you were?
Sort of.
Okay, that's what he was. And we were fine. Like, we didn't feel like we were poor. Our kids didn't feel like we were poor. We had a home, we went on adventures together, went on vacation still. We just had to be inventive of how we did these things.
Yeah, so we learned to appreciate things like playing board games and going on very, very, very cheap dates. I have established a space zoo.
He's a cheap date.
I feel like this is taking a turn.
I'm liking
not
this video.
for the better. We have an old Viking saying that goes "Maður er manns gaman," which means a man is a man's fun, which doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense, but what it basically means is that you enjoy yourself more in other people's company. It was true 1,000 years ago here in Scandinavia, and it's probably even more true nowadays when everything is moving super fast and everything is saturated with electronics and distractions and what have you. You enjoy yourself more when spending time with other people, and that's what we learned to do.
And that's free.
Right?
Yeah, I don't charge my company.
I should hope not.
I know what that sounds like now. But I meant like with friends. I don't charge my friends for hanging out with me.
Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, shut up. If you're having fun so far and enjoying these life lessons that we're sharing, then please hit the thumbs up button and let us know that you like it. The 5th life lesson is that it pays to plan. And let me just tell you, we have saved thousands of dollars during these moves by simply planning them out. We've been spreadsheeting and comparing different prices of how much it costs to ship things over versus bringing suitcases over versus buying new. All these things, putting them into spreadsheets and finding out what was most affordable. So when we moved to Texas from Iceland, we actually ended up bringing 7 suitcases with us on the plane and a toddler. Then when we moved...
That was like the limit. That is, I mean, if you are also wondering about that in terms of just practicalities, that is the physical limit of what 2 people can bring through the airport.
Yes.
Additional life lesson that wasn't on our list, but you know, you can have this one for free.
Now on the way from Texas to Denmark, we got another kid and actually had some furniture that we liked. And when we compared those prices for that furniture to the prices we'd have to pay in Denmark, it was actually cheaper to get a pallet and ship it to Denmark. So we ordered a pallet to come and be picked up. Then we went through like, what kind of boxes can we put on this pallet to maximize the space so we use it 100%, like every square inch of this pallet was used. So we actually ended up buying like a few crib mattress boxes, even though we only had 1 crib, and just filling those crib mattress boxes with stuff because that would maximize the space usage better.
We still sold most of our stuff, but in terms of the baby items that we still wanted to bring or a few sentimental items, then it was easier and cheaper to do it this way. And if you compare the first option that we looked into to the 4th or 5th option, we definitely saved thousands of dollars. Number 6 of our 10 life lessons learned from selling everything and moving abroad is the importance of family. Now, we talked about the importance of learning to rely on each other and working as a team. What we also learned is that having family around is so important and so nice. And that's why we also decided to move back to Denmark to be closer to your family and to have babysitting all the time.
Thanks, Mom. I have 2 fire I'm not using. How about you?
It is a good example of you don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore. And in this case, you appreciate so much more the time that you get to spend with your family, with your siblings, with your cousins. And we always wanted our kids to be able to experience that as well growing up, knowing their grandparents.
The 7th life lesson that we learned is Torchy's Tacos. Now, if you've been to Texas, I don't need to say anything else. But for those of you that haven't been there, let me just tell you, it is the most amazing Tex-Mex food truck turned chain restaurant in the world. And I'm not just saying this because I'm pregnant.
And the thing is, you could say the same about a dozen other Tex-Mex barbecue places that we love to hit up while we're in Texas on our limited budget. But that is not exactly the point with this. The point is, we would have never known. And there are so many things that we would have never known if we hadn't up and moved to Texas. But by removing yourself from the environment that you're used to living in and putting yourself in a completely different cultural environment, you expose yourself to a lot of different ideas and concepts and experiences that you just wouldn't have had back at home. And I think that's especially true for us liberal Scandinavians moving into the heart of Texas. But the thing is, while you're in that environment, what you learn is that even if you don't agree with a lot of the ideas that are different from what you've grown up with and adopted yourself, you learn to appreciate the different points of view and you at least understand where people are coming from. And that is so valuable.
Yeah, once you've immersed yourself in a different culture, you're just a lot less likely to judge and you open yourself up more to meeting a lot more people and having more friends.
Yeah, regardless of what their political opinions are or views on life in general. Our 8th life lesson from selling everything and moving abroad is that it is never the right time. It's never going to be convenient for you to make big moves or big changes because life just doesn't work that way. Whenever we've had a big idea, something that we really wanted to work towards, at some point or another, we just had to decide that regardless of everything that might seem like it was gonna stop us from doing that, we would just have to kind of close our eyes and jump in. And whenever we've done that, we haven't regretted it.
Yeah, so even though we love to plan and be in control of things, still, the times where we've jumped in and just kind of made it work have always worked out.
For everything, there's a time and a season, and I think that applies very well here.
Our 9th life lesson from selling everything and moving abroad is that happiness is a journey, not a destination.
Sá ég spóa suður í flóa, orðið komið víst á ný. Sá ég spóa suður í flóa, bí, 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 orðið komið víst á ný.
Are we there yet? I've heard this so many times before, but I have to say it really rung true when we were sitting in the middle of Texas alone. I was in the laundry room one day, picking up the laundry and being kind of annoyed at it, and I saw this little sign on the table that said just that. And I brought it home because that's where people left stuff that you could bring. Brought it home, showed it to Ben, and I was like, this is just so true. And we sat there and talked about it.
I think it was around that same time when I noticed myself that I kept telling myself, oh, I'll be so happy when we have a little bit more money. I'll be so happy when I graduate and I have a proper job. And then I realized that having made those dramatic changes of moving from Iceland to Texas and then recognizing the same pattern of convincing myself that I would be happy when something else was in place, it's just not worth it. You're wasting so much life on waiting for all the pieces to fall into place to give yourself permission to be happy. And you mentioned this to me right around that same time, and it caused a switch in the way that I chose to look at things. And I'm not perfect at it, but I think we've gotten a lot better as a result of experiencing all these different things and just learning to find joy in the little things along the way.
And we actually still have that little sign in our entryway to remind us of this every day. Now, our 10th life lesson from selling everything and moving abroad is that it gives you an automatic cool card. For our kids, when they go to school, they'll be like, oh, you're that foreigner if you're somewhere, or oh wow, you're that kid that lived abroad. It's awesome. You
speaks a few languages, or when you go to the airport and you drop all of the passports on the table and it's like a mixed bag of candy and people are like, ooh, what's going on here? Automatic cool card.
Exactly. And when people at work, they say something and you're like, oh yeah, I've experienced that. Or oh yeah, back when I lived in Texas, or back when I lived in Iceland. It's just awesome. You are automatically cooler once you've sold everything and moved abroad.
I had a friend of ours that said that we were the most interesting family that they knew.
Interesting or cool?
Yeah, maybe I misunderstood that. Thanks for tagging along. If you enjoyed this video, then we made another video on the main differences in keeping your home organized in Scandinavia versus America that we think you'd enjoy. And then we'll see you next week.
Bye.